This podcast is brought to you by Podspot Events.
Have you ever felt lonely? Has that loneliness ever led you to a very dark headspace? Well, that was the reality for the guest on this episode, Amy Lynch. Back in 2020, Amy had a low point in her mental health due to feeling isolated and alone during the pandemic. Conscious that other women might be feeling the same, Amy decided to lean into community and friendship, and she formed the women's support group Bondi Beach Babes. Bondi Beach Babes started off as 40 women going out to brunch together and has now grown to 21,000 members. Bondi Beach Babes do some great work in the local community, helping women stay connected from a social perspective. In this episode, Amy also touches on her personal story of going through IVF treatment, which I found absolutely fascinating as I knew nothing about IVF. This episode's sponsored by Cameron's Tallow Balm, Remotee and Chief Nutrition, but I'll tell you a bit more about them later. I hope you enjoy this episode. As always, remember to give us a follow on Instagram at the Bondi Podcast to stay up to date with all of our guests and episodes. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and you'll find all of our episodes on Spotify. Cheers! Amy, welcome to the Bondi Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
First question we ask all of our guests, what is your favourite thing about Bondi?
I reckon my favourite thing about Bondi is a cheesy answer, and I think it's the people. Actually, I've got two, the people and the beach. I think for me are why I have stayed here for 8 years and not left. I think I really love that kind of misfitty, entrepreneurial community, and like the arty, creative side of Bondi I love, and I think it feels like family, and it's kept me here, I suppose.
And I suppose it is quite interesting, and we've talked about this on one of our recent episodes. Like, one of the really good things about Bondi from my perspective is if you just even take Lamrock Avenue as an example, you've got a backpackers right in the middle, surrounded by like $4 or $5 million houses. Yeah. And everyone just coexists quite nicely around each other, and it works. Yeah. It shouldn't work like lots of other places in the world. You know, the wealthy keep to the wealthy in the wealthy suburbs and don't generally mix it with the likes of backpackers. But for whatever reason, in Bondi, it just seems to work for some reason.
I think it's what gives it soul, right? I think any place that has that huge mix of community is what gives it that little bit of soul. And
yeah, it's a great point. And I think the one other thing in my view that gives Bondi its soul is like, if you look out the window and just look at the landscape, no two buildings that are beside each other are the same.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of unique skyline to me that makes Bondi Bondi, and that's like its soul. And I feel maybe more recently, Bondi sort of having that soul ripped out by all this construction and all these new residential flats and buildings that are getting put in.
Don't get me started because we're going to be for hours if we go on a rant. But yeah, I think for me as well, just I have never met, I feel really lucky to just always, like yourself, like meet really interesting people, which maybe was why you started the podcast. Like there's so many people that in this small, tiny little space that have so many interesting stories, doing all of these amazing things. And I'm like, if I lived somewhere else, I don't know if I'd have met these people. And I think there's so much opportunity, you know, and things going on all over the place that you wouldn't know of. And I think Bondi gets a bad rap sometimes, but I think once you tap into that kind of community and soul, then suddenly you're kind of exposed to all these, fascinating people doing fascinating things.
Yeah. And I don't think if I lived anywhere else, I would have been able to like start this type of podcast and had like the support of the community either. If you lived somewhere else, you probably might not have started Bondi Beach Babes.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Because you're just being in Bondi, it just feels like the right place to take a punt and start these kind of community groups or podcasts or side hustle, like whatever you want to do. It's like choose your own adventure. And generally people who live in this suburb, they'll get around it. They'll be like, yeah, if I can have a crack. It doesn't work.
And I think that, isn't it? I think that's the other thing why I love it. I think we're so supportive of each other. Like if someone starts something or, you know, like same with you, if someone approached me in Bondi Beach Babes, I will always do my best to like showcase and support local, like as best as I can. And I think that is its beauty.
Just a quick word from me, guys. We're making some progress, Bondi podcast listeners. We're up to 450 followers on Spotify and 150 subscribers on YouTube. I would love to get both of those numbers closer to 500 across both platforms. So I've got a quick favor to ask. If you haven't, could you please quickly pause this episode, go and hit the subscribe and follow buttons on both platforms. It really helps with the show and ensures we can keep bringing quality guests an episode to you guys. Cheers. So Bondi Beach Babes, how did it all start?
It started from it started during lockdown. So I had a lot of friends move away and they moved to the Central Coast, and there was a lot of COVID babies. A lot of my friends kind of got married and were kind of going through that next stage of life. And for me, I wasn't. I was at home, and I found myself for the first time ever really lonely. And I've never felt like that before. I got really lonely, really down, ended up at the doctor's several times, got put on antidepressants, and was in a super low place, like a worryingly low place. And and then one day I was like, I don't want to be taking antidepressants. And I think I just like to try and think, okay, what's really going on? And what's the solution of this thing for me at this time? And for me, I was like, okay, I feel like my life is kind of stuck. I feel I'm not meeting new people. And I spoke to a friend, and she was like, do you know what? Let's do an event. So her and I had kind of worked a little bit. At the time, she was managing events. There used to be a bar at the front. I'm sure you know, the Bucket List. And she was kind of managing events there. So we said, let's just put a post out. We put a post out about a bottomless brunch, and we had 40 strangers turn up to this bottomless brunch, which was kind of in between lockdowns. And we had the best time. Like, the most beautiful 40 strangers turned up. And on the back of that, I'd be walking down Campbell Parade, and someone would like knock on the window and be like, Amy! And there's two people in there having a drink. Then a couple of girls moved in together. And then the whole thing just spiraled. Like, then there was 1,000 people, and then 5,000. And yeah, I think for me, I've kind of kept it going because it's had such a snowball effect. It's a really special, beautiful community. And for me, it kind of saved me in that lockdown.
We've skipped over a lot of detail.
Yeah.
There, Amy, and I want to just rewind back to like lockdown and that feeling of loneliness. When did you first start to feel that way? And can you even describe that feeling? Because there might be some people listening who are maybe at that point now. I know we're out of lockdown, but there's a sort of that loneliness epidemic going on at the minute that you hear about if you kind of look into it. And I think it would be just important for people to try and understand like how that feels. Like how did it feel waking up in the morning when you were in that state? Or was there a moment where you're like, there's something's not right?
God. I mean, dark. I think dark. I remember describing to friends and kind of saying at that time, it was like the feeling of going for a surf and being held under a wave. And I'm like, Jesus, I can't come up for breath. And I think kind of the scary thing at that point is, I think if you looked at my life on social media, you would have no idea. Even now, when I said this to a group of people the other day, and I said, I was lonely, and a friend was in the audience, and she came up to me and was like, I had no idea I still can't fathom that, because on social media, my life looks very social and very fun. So yeah, that feeling of just darkness, I think, and emptiness and kind of lack of hope.
And at this stage, Amy, you didn't feel that you could reach out to someone, like a friend
I did, but I think when you're in this kind of spiral survival of, okay, I'm underneath this wave and I don't know how the hell to come up, you you're looking for like my friend took me to the doctor and she was like, you really need to see somebody, like this is scary.
So how long had that been going on for before that point, before your friend took you to the doctor?
I would say I felt that way for a good month or so. I keep things a lot to myself. And I'd say, yeah, a good month. And then I was coming out with some scary stuff, some scary kind of comments.
Like what?
And I didn't want to be here. Like I was kind of saying that to two friends in particular. And then they took me to the doctors. And yeah, I think that conversation was the first time I'd kind of said it out aloud to a stranger that I was feeling. I'm a very positive, happy person, and I think kind of admitting that was really scary. Yeah, it kind of felt a bit out of control was the feeling. Yeah, scary. It was super scary.
And over that sort of 1 month period, Amy, like 1 month in the grand scheme of things is quite like a short period of time, but did it go from, was it quite drastic, the drop off to where you were previously to that low?
Yeah.
And did it happen quickly?
No, it didn't happen quickly. I'd say it kind of built up to that point. I mean, what is quick? I suppose over a few weeks, it kind of got to that point. And then I couldn't see a way of feeling happier at that time. Yeah.
So tell us how that conversation with the doctor went.
Scary. I walked in petrified. Admitted to her how I was feeling. I was sweating. I was shaking. I was crying. I felt embarrassed. And she was super lovely. And from that moment, she actually continued to text me, or the doctors text me and checked in with me. But yeah, I was scared, but it did, I suppose, when you're sharing something so dark and deep and you finally kind of tell someone and you're finally doing something about it, it was a relief that, someone knows, and okay, you're the professional and you're here to help, was kind of the feeling.
And then when you said it out loud, did it feel like a weight had nearly lifted?
Yeah, it did. I mean, I felt exhausted at that point, and like I say, like I was under that wave and not breathing. So it was a moment of like, okay, I'm kind of up. I'm paddling.
Yeah.
I'm paddling. Yeah, it kind of that analogy is kind of the only way to describe it.
And over that month, Amy, did you feel like you were constantly under that wave for the entire month, or were there any moments where you would come up and then go back under?
I'd come up and then I'd go under, but I think each time I'm underneath, I'm deeper and darker.
Wow.
And then it's hard to see the way back up.
Yeah. And so you went to the doctor, and the doctor prescribed antidepressants?
Yeah, she gave me antidepressants, which...
Was that after the first consult? Like straight on the
straight
antidepressant?
Away,
wow.
Yeah. I was pretty bad. She prescribed antidepressants and then to see like a psychologist. I did both. I just went with it. I took these antidepressants for about a week, and it's like they didn't agree with me. It was like taking speed. I was on an extreme, like, anxious up.
And is that normal for people when they start taking antidepressants?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I know it can take a while to kind of even yourself out. But I didn't enjoy that feeling. I remember one day I laid on my bed. I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I'm at a rave. Like my heart's beating. I'm like, woo. I had loads of energy, like too much energy. Yeah. And I think it was at that point I I'm like, I really don't want to be doing this. What? Surely, like I'm an intelligent person that, I'm like, surely there's something. I just need to figure out why I'm doing this. Like what got me in this hole in the first place.
So the antidepressants only lasted a week before you were like, nah, this isn't for me. I need to.
Pretty much, yeah. To which my friends were like, please continue to take them. And I said no. I'm like, I just need to try and do something. I went to my psychologist appointment as well. I don't find that helpful.
Why not?
I like to think of things. I'm a doer, and I like to think of things to do, and kind of sitting, talking about it, and like, I'm like, okay, I still feel that I need stuff to do. I'm like, it's not, for me, it was a situational depression. It wasn't, there was kind of nothing wrong within me or trauma or, I was just, at that time, I was just feeling lonely. So, yeah.
And is that sort of like are the lines blurred between loneliness and depression?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, I think they are. Well, I think one leads to the other, right? And I think that's the whole spiral that it just keeps going and going. But yeah, I think so.
So what happened when you made that decision after 1 week? Antidepressants aren't for me. Therapy's not for me. Like what happened? What happened next? Like,
and then I was thinking, why do I feel lonely? Like I've never ever felt low or on my own, and I'm not. I'm like surrounded by good people. So I think for me it was loneliness in, okay, I'm not doing these adventures, or I'm not meeting new people, or so it was just trying to work out what was missing for me at that time, I suppose.
it's crazy to think, like in a place like Bondi Beach, which, the perception is it's quite a sociable place. So many guests have come on the podcast and said one of their favorite things about Bondi is the community, and that is there. So it's certainly crazy to think that someone can actually feel really lonely and get into that state living in a place like Bondi. And I know I've certainly felt it from time to time. This last year that I've done alcohol free, one of the things I've spoken about is that feeling of loneliness that comes with that, because you are giving up a social aspect of your life, and there's a bit of a lull before you sort of find your new tribe, right? Or maybe on that path that you're potentially on. And like I've looked into it, and if you look into loneliness, there, and you listen to, is it Simon Sinek?
Yeah.
Talks about it quite a lot. Like there is this loneliness epidemic going on at the time. Like, what do you think is causing this loneliness epidemic when we are all more connected than ever?
Yeah. Social media, I think, is just up there, isn't it? I think, like I was saying, you look at my life or anyone's life on social media, and it's this, we're all having fun. And I think, behind that, a lot is going on. I think the amount of conversations I must have over text, WhatsApp, Instagram, I'm kind of constantly talking to people, yet there is that kind of sometimes a feeling of emptiness.
Do you think that's lack of face-to-face?
I think so, yeah. I think at the moment, in general, are you talking, or?
Well, we're all more connected more than ever digitally. You can message your friends. You can message 10 friends at the same time if you really wanted to. So in theory, you can talk to someone. It's easier to communicate with people you're close to. It's less easy, or what I'm trying to say is potentially the loneliness is coming from lack of actually physically getting together and relying too much on just sitting there typing away.
100%. I think, that face-to-faceness is huge, but also I think the other thing, the part of loneliness, I reckon particularly at the moment, is also that whole comparison
Yeah.
over Instagram of, or wherever, of my life should be better. Whereas actually, if you just sort of simple things, isn't it? If you kind of look at yourself and look at what you have, it's probably amazing.
Yeah.
I think those two things, lack of, at the moment I'm teaching, and I think there's also this, I teach at UTS, and there's this whole new kind of epidemic of students that live through lockdown and now don't know how to socialize. I sometimes will walk into a classroom, there's kids sat in there like 18 years old, all on their phone, no one like talking to each other. And I think that is a problem.
Because that's all they could do for 2 years, right?
Yeah, and then suddenly it's like, okay, now socialize. They don't know how to. Like, turn to the person next to you and ask, how was your weekend? Like, do something. I think there's this whole generation that have lost those social skills. That's kind of quite scary, that are now the ones who are, should be going out and partying and doing all these, spontaneous things. And it's that generation that, need looking after.
Chief Nutrition have come on board as a sponsor. Chief Nutrition specialise in clean, healthy snacks that cut the crap. My personal favourite is the collagen protein powder. If you want to find out more about Chief Nutrition, listen to our episode with Veronica Larasova. And if you like what you hear, Bondi podcast listeners get 10% off all Chief products. Just follow the link in the show notes. Cheers. Looking back in the COVID period, I'm like, what period of my life would that have impacted the most, or would I have been most annoyed to give up? And see if COVID had have hit right before I was about to go to uni, I'd have been fucking devastated. Because for the two years prior to going to uni, I was buzzing to go to uni. Like I was leaving Belfast, I was going over to Edinburgh for uni. I could not wait for like things like Freshers Week and to like live by myself. And I see, if looking back, if someone had taken those first 2 years of uni away from me and I had to sit at home and do online courses, I would have been I'd have been fucked up too, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, same.
So how do we solve it? So you're saying you're walking into a lecture theatre or a classroom and everyone's sitting down on their phone, not looking up, not chatting to each other. How do we solve that?
I mean, I think people are aware of it now. There's so much talk about social media, being banned for teenagers, or I think the impact of it is huge. And I think often I don't know, I think there needs to be education for kids in some way around socializing, and how people have kind of forgotten how to do it in some ways. Like those kids, like I'm saying, like 18 years old, and they don't know how to talk to one another. So, I mean, I make them at uni, I make them put their laptops away at certain points because they're just sat constantly on screens. And I think they love it. Like, I think there needs to be that education for those kids of put the phone away, turn the laptop off. Okay, we're gonna do. They don't know. Yeah, they don't know how to socialize. How we solve it for us, I don't have an answer.
Just thinking back, Amy, to when you were under the wave, for a want of a better term, and talking about that looking at social media and that comparison thing, are you speaking from experience there? Were you doing some of that, and was it contributing to
100%.
the spiral?
I do it all the time. I still do it. I think, we live in this, the world of perfect on social media. And I think for me, and I will say this to a lot of my close friends, I think because they were going through that, marriage, kids, I didn't have that. There was this comparison of, why haven't I got that? Is there something wrong with me as to why I don't have that? So I think that impact, that kind of all compounded into what the hell was going on in my life.
And have you had to reevaluate your relationship with social media as a way of not ending up in that place again?
Yeah, I'm conscious of the whole doom scrolling. But a lot of because of Bondi Beach Babes, a lot of my screen time is huge. I do sit on it a lot, because I'm talking to people a lot on it all the time. But I try, I'm very aware of the fakeness on it. And I think the nice thing, conversations like this or talking to other people about it is everyone's aware of the fakeness. It's not real life. So
Still impacts you though. Like I
it
get it.
does.
I'm super aware of it.
Yeah, it does.
Still impacts you.
Yeah, all the time. Yeah. I don't know what the solution to that bit is. I don't have it. And I'm super ambitious and, not a perfectionist, but I like to just try harder, do better. So I think also, I imagine you're of the same mindset, like, and having that and seeing people's success and stuff like that. I think for me, it's more of that. That I'm like, oh, I want to be that.
Yeah. More recently, what I've found helping is muting certain people's posts and stories. So
Yeah, I'll do that. I'm with you.
certain, if you're following certain people on Instagram, you can have a look at the life that they're putting out there on social media. And if it creeps into your psyche and you find yourself thinking about that 4 hours later after you've seen it, you probably need to reevaluate your relationship with why you're following that person. And if it makes you feel shit, maybe don't unfollow them, but like mute their posts and their stories for a little bit and see if that helps. And that's certainly something I've found. That's something I've been trialing more recently, and it's certainly something I've found really, really helped me over the last couple of months.
I did a big cull.
Culling and muting. Yeah, culling and muting.
And I don't really follow many kind of famous people. I probably follow 2. I don't. The people that I look at are generally people that I love and care about rather than fakeness.
Well, you follow the Bondi podcast,
Well,
so
you know.
you must love and care about us. Look, I sort of took us back there, Amy, to delve into sort of how you were feeling at that point in time. I felt it was really important to sort of address some of those points. Let's take us back to the brunch. take us back to the brunch.
To 40 girls.
Yeah. So
margaritas.
where did you have that first brunch?
We did it at Bondi Hardware, so we had the little secret garden out the back. Yeah.
And 40 people turned up.
40 people turned up. Yeah.
Did you think anyone was going to turn up?
No, I still don't. When there's like 1,000 people turning up. I don't think any. I have the constant panic of no one's going to come all the time.
And how did that first event go?
It was bloody brilliant. It was so much fun. And chaos is how it went. It was complete. It was 40 women that just let loose. But like I said, I think it was the basis of some really beautiful friendships and just that start of like, okay, there's something in this, for 40 strangers to show up who are also like, hey, I also feel a bit lonely and I'm looking to meet other people. And 40 like good people showed up, like 40 people that I want to be friends with. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
How did it escalate from there, I suppose?
From there, do you mean escalate on the day or escalate to where we're at now?
No, I'd love to find it. Maybe you can tell me off camera how it escalated on the day, Amy. In my head, you've had this first event. You've not even got the name Bondi Beach Babes at this time. So you've got 40 women together. You've established there's a need. There are multiple people living in this area that are feeling lonely, want that connection. Light bulb must have went off at some point.
Yeah, I think pretty quick. Like I said, like I had lots of people from that event saying like, hey, we're living together. Hey, this girl's got me a job. Hi, we're going out for a drink. Do you want to come? We've just gone like on a holiday together. I'm like, bloody hell, this is quite an impact.
These were all girls that initially met at that first brunch.
Yes, yeah. It grew pretty quick. And then I think from there, at the time I was doing it with my friend Sarah. And from there we were like, there is something in this. Let's set up the name, let's set up the community page, let's just see what happens, put it out there, and then it grew pretty quick. But I think for me it's, those friendships and things are lovely and so important, but it's the follow on impact of what's come of that. Like, we've had a lot of women in domestic violent relationships, particularly during that lockdown time, who have reached out over messages, who have posted in Bondi Beach Babes. And I think what we do a good job of is, I think social media can be quite a scary place. And I think somehow or another, this community has kind of evolved as this family and this kind of kind space where people feel cared about enough to say, hey, I'm going through this relationship, I need to get out, can anybody help, can anybody put me on their sofa for the night? So I think, things like that, there hasn't been that kind of safe forum for people to say those things.
So are people posting that on the Facebook
people will
group,
post it
on the Facebook wall, or private? Wow.
Both. I've had people reach out to me privately saying they're going through stuff. I've had people saying that they're homeless, to the point of I'm like, oh my God, I don't know how to reply I don't feel trained to deal with these questions. But now, as we've grown, we've partnered with Women's DV charity in Bondi Junction. We've partnered with Wayside Chapel, like different. So I think now we've like, okay, we have the contacts. If somebody reaches out, it's not just giving general advice. It's, here's someone within our community who can help.
Who's an expert.
Yeah. And here's, another person that you can talk to straight away.
Incredible. So 20,000 members now, Amy?
Yeah, 21.
21,000. Congrats.
Thank you.
And you guys like run loads of events. You're really consistent. Tell me about the events.
So we do, there's lots of kind of smaller events and meetups. And I think for me, like, I'm passionate about keeping things within our community as much as we can. So
you mean within Bondi?
Within Bondi, and within, this is so-and-so's friend who's got a bow, or this is so-and-so who can DJ, who's, with some a tentative link, but as much as I can within Bondi in terms of programming different things. So we partner, we do surfing and ocean swimming and self-defense programs and consistently different things with different businesses. But I think all of the different events that we run, the nice thing about them is there's not one type of person that shows up. So you might get a woman in her 60s, a girl in her 20s, someone from Brazil, someone from Australia, someone from the UK, and everyone feels included, which I think is what makes it a bit different.
And you run these bigger events from time to time. So like, I'm thinking like no swipes, ski trips, boat parties. When did they start?
Probably like about a year and a half ago. So we set up No Swipes, which again, my thing is about getting people off of social media and meeting in person. And there was a lot of chat in Bondi Beach Babes about there's no men, there's no good men in Bondi. I'm like, there are good men. You're not meeting them on an app. So we started to kind of partner with lots of big venues. So the Ivy, the Races, kind of these bigger sort of premium venues. And I suppose we've been doing those for about a year and a half. It's my goal to have some of those bigger venues and kind of partnerships involved.
I went to No Swipes.
Oh yeah, of course you did.
Yeah, when was it, like sort of July, August last year?
Yeah.
I had such a good time.
I forgot you went there.
Yeah, it was really good. I had such a good day out and like made some like really good friends. Like,
I love it.
Yeah, no romantic connections, but
But you don't know where it's going to lead,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
You don't know.
Exactly. No, we had such a good time. Any successful matches that you're aware of from those swipes?
We've had, yeah, we have. We've had a couple, past couple of months, they reached out. They were in the UK introducing each other to their parents. It's
And
very serious.
where did they meet?
Where did they meet? They met at the races.
Did they?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Quite a few of my friends have had relationships out of no swipes and Bondi Beach Babes.
Wow, incredible.
Are you trying to grow your business or brand but often find there aren't enough hours in the week? Have you considered hiring a virtual assistant to help with all those tasks that you don't want to do that could easily be delegated? I'm talking about admin, accounting, digital marketing, social media, and much, much more. Well, our show sponsors Remote provide businesses, entrepreneurs, and social media influencers with the top virtual assistant talent in the Philippines. If you're curious but still sitting on the fence, why not use the referral code BONDI to trial a virtual assistant for 2 weeks for absolutely free. That's 2 weeks, absolutely free. All you have to do is go to the website www.remote.com.au/contact, enter your details, enter the referral code BONDI, and someone from Remote will be in touch. I've added the link to the Remote website in the Instagram bio, and there's also a link in the show notes. And if you're interested in sponsoring the podcast, please get in touch with us over Instagram. Cheers.
So Bondi Beach Babes has been going, 3 or 4 years now. Amy, if you look back on the last 3 or 4 years, what are you most proud of when it comes to Bondi Beach Babes?
God, difficult question. I think I'm most proud of. I'm proud of how much of an impact it's had. We set up a bar in the first couple of years of having Beach Babes. We opened up a pop-up bar for 1.5 years in Bondi, which employed Bondi Beach Babes. It was for Bondi Beach Babes to come and drink in. I think I'm proud of how much it's achieved in that short space of time. It was never set out to be a business or do these things. It set out for me selfishly to meet some new friends. So I think from that dark place, I'm proud that so much good has kind of come out of it.
And you receive quite a lot of messages, maybe privately. Is there any that stand out as, shocked in a good way or a bad way? Probably good way. We'll focus on the good.
Focus on the good.
What sort of messages do you get through from your members or people that have been to your events? The positive ones.
The positive ones. I've had people who have said, hey, this group has completely saved me from feeling in a shitty space to now oh my God, I've suddenly found my people. I've had, just people. I think people underestimate the power of friendship and where that can lead to.
And what's your role today, Amy, in terms of Bondi Beach Babes?
In terms of Bondi Beach Babes, I'm everything. In terms of what I'm doing.
Yeah, obviously you founded it. I know you've got your ambassadors and stuff now, but how hands-on is it for you?
Yeah. I'm super hands-on. It's a 24/8 job. I think for me, it's what I need to think about next. At the moment, I'm doing everything. We've also set up Manly Beach Babes. We have Bali Beach Babes kind of being born. And I think for me, I want to see, it's been so successful here that I want to be able to repeat and have that impact in other places. So for me at the moment, my role is all of those things that someone having their own business has. And I think the role that I want next is to see, okay, how can I grow this to delegate some of those things to other people. So we've got ambassadors who are super great. We've got a really amazing team now in Bondi of probably around 15 of us.
And do elements of it run itself, Amy?
Yeah, some of it does. Some of it does. I think with the ambassadors, what's been really nice is that team of, they will take some of the smaller events. So like our sunrise dips, our runs, our walk clubs, like things like that, where I was doing all of these meetups in the beginning and it was just impossible to show up to all these things. So all of those elements kind of run in the background now. And they get joy out of, joy and purpose out of doing those things and helping other women. So I think my role is to, build more of a team at the moment, and just try and replicate it in other places if I can.
Fantastic. Look, Amy, you've been really open in sort of sharing a bit of your story, certainly at that period during COVID. We're going to go back to more of your personal story, but it's more like your current personal story.
Yeah.
And I know this is something you're happy to sort of talk about because we've talked about it before, but I think one of the big things going on in your life at the minute outside of Bondi Beach Babes is IVF treatment.
Yeah.
So again, for anyone who's maybe listening and doesn't know exactly what IVF treatment is, what is it and why are you going through it?
Yeah. So I think COVID gave me a lot of good things and a lot of insight into what I wanted, and I knew I wanted a baby. And I'm single. So IVF is a fertility treatment where that helps you to get pregnant. So I think the great thing at the moment, a lot of women are doing IVF on their own. So I'm doing it with a sperm donor. And yeah, I've gone through 6 rounds. I'm actually about to start my 7th. Yeah, and I think it was one of those things, what we spoke before about what was missing for me. I have such a close family that I always had this dream of having my own family, and it felt like it had been taken away. So I've just decided to go down the route of doing it by myself.
So let's talk about that process. So from the point of view going, right, I want to go down the IVF route. Like, what's step one?
Yeah. Step 1 was a lot of like processing that I was going to do it alone. A lot of dealing with, okay, I don't have a guy, I don't have a husband, I'm going to be in Australia on my own. So kind of dealing with that mental side of it. And admitting to my parents, particularly my dad, that I'm going to get a sperm donor.
British parents are quite traditional, right?
And just quite taboo. It still is. People are still like, oh, what's going to happen here? It's, yeah. So I think that was step 1, talking to my dad about it, which was a very awkward conversation.
Well, how did he take it?
Not good, actually. No, it's his little baby. Yeah, it was something strange that I was doing. But now 6 rounds in, they're open to it, fully supportive. I knew they would be, but it's taken a while to.
We're gonna get a little grandchild out of it. They'll be buzzing, surely.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Okay, step 2.
Yeah, step 2. Step 2. Going to the clinic and then also finding a donor.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
How does that, like, how do you even, what, like, yeah, I don't even know how to just ask the bloody question. Finding a donor.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you find your donor?
Yeah. So I think now it's quite a lot of women are choosing this path. So it's actually relatively easy. So through the clinic, you basically get like a database of men, and you look through the database, you see their photo of when they're a child, and you get, some of them have about 10 pages like attached to this photograph, and it details their medical history. They might write a letter to the child. On some of them, you can hear a voice of the donor, but the donor's interview with the nurse, which is pretty weird. And then you see photos. So you don't see any of when the man is an adult, but you see photos when they're a baby, and then their choice, kind of up to about the age of 12, I suppose.
And how did you land on your particular donor?
I narrowed it down to things that were important. So for me, having a Caucasian donor was important because I wanted this human to feel part of my family. And then I narrowed it down on terms of you find out their job, and some of those I wanted someone smart and intelligent, and so you can kind of narrow down on some of those things.
And did the donor that you landed on, did he have like the letter and the voice?
I've had 2 now. I'm on my second donor. My first I ended up getting, so there's quite a big shortage for donors in Australia. So at the moment the wait list is, I think it's about 1.5 years. And I think there's this whole myth that it's students and they're getting paid, and actually this donor has to go through quite a long counselling process and sign to, they can be contacted when the child's 18. So my first donor, because of this long wait list, I ended up getting a donor from California.
Smart. They're all good looking over
Well,
there.
And I heard his voice. Yeah.
Wow. So you had to get his sperm flown over? Or?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it goes to the clinic. It doesn't
land in
It doesn't
your
land
post
at your
box
home
in
and
Bondi
then you're
Beach,
like,
yeah. You have to go and pick it up from like
you're not,
Ozpost.
you're not like inserting the sperm yourself.
Yeah.
It goes to the clinic. It's a whole procedure it's a medical procedure of if it gets there. So you, as a woman, you go through, all the hormone treatments, you inject yourself for a few weeks.
What do you inject yourself with?
Hormones.
All right.
A lot of different hormones. Your body basically just prepares itself to get pregnant. So you're completely bonkers.
And these are if you're having a natural birth, these are or natural pregnancy, these are hormones that your body would just sort of generate on its own, but because you're doing it this way, you need somehow get those hormones into your system.
It's hormones to stimulate your eggs.
Fertility, yeah.
Yeah, so it's hormones to kind of grow those eggs as big as they can grow. It's hormones to stimulate your body releasing as many eggs as it can in that cycle. So you're injecting yourself with a lot of different things.
How was that?
I actually found it quite empowering.
Yeah.
I quite enjoyed it. I'm like, go me, injecting myself here at home. Like this is something I never thought I'd be doing. I was proud of myself, and kind of weirdly, I freaked out on the first one, but then I weirdly enjoyed it. Is that weird? Maybe. I don't know.
You tell me. Okay, so we're injecting the hormones.
Injecting the hormones.
And then how do we get the sperm to the eggs?
It's like a science lesson. You then...
I have no idea about IVF, right. So I need I need it spelled out.
You grow your eggs. So you're actually growing your follicles, and on the end of your follicles are your eggs. So you go in, you have lots of internal scans, and they measure the size of the follicles. When they're a certain size is when it's ready, you're ready to have egg collection. So, and as a woman, that's growing all those eggs is quite painful. So you're hugely bloated, you put on a bit of weight, your PMS times 100. And you then go into theatre, you have surgery, and they take the eggs out. That's you go under and you have an operation to remove them. As a woman, that's quite a full-on process, because you wake up in like the hospital ward, and then you have this freak out of how many eggs have I got, and there's other women in that ward equally under the same freak out. So you're all kind of there post anesthetic, like sore, and then
And that's the question you want to ask is...
It's all you want to know.
Right.
I want as many eggs out of my body as possible.
And what were you aiming for? Like,
I was aiming for like 9
okay.
of my age would be good.
Yeah.
They sometimes, when you have it done, they write it on your hand. So when you wake up, you see a number on your hand, and you...
Is that a 9 or a 6?
Yeah. Please be a 9. Please be a 9. Please be a 9.
Wow.
So yeah, they write on your hand, and then okay. And then the process is they take those eggs, and then usually like 50% are okay. So they try to fertilize the eggs in like a petri dish, however you call it. So that's when the sperm comes in. They put it with the sperm straight away, any of the good eggs, and then they make the embryos. So you get a phone call kind of on that day of like, look, we think we've possibly got, they can see it happening under the microscope, we've possibly got X amount of embryos. You then get a call on day 3 after surgery, and they tell you how many you think you've got. And then on day 5, you get another phone call of how many you think you've got, and then you go in to have the embryo put in. And that's actually quite a simple process. It's like, for a woman, it's like having a smear test. It's not painful. It's not, you don't go under. They just put it in.
Wow.
I don't know how to say that in a different way.
And that's one round.
That's one round. And then you wait a horrific 10 days to find out if that embryo has turned into a pregnancy. And then you go back, you have a test, and then you find out if you're pregnant or not. And if you're not, then it hasn't worked.
And you have to start the process again.
Then you go again.
The full shebang.
Everything, yeah.
Our newest sponsor, Cameron's Tallow, is changing the natural skincare game. Do you suffer from eczema, psoriasis, dermatitis, or acne scarring? Well, Cameron's Tallow Balm could be exactly what you need. Made from Australia's best grass-fed and grass-finished beef tallow, Cameron's Tallow Balm is great for skin nourishment and is perfect for dry and sensitive skin. If you're curious, you can check the guys out on Instagram at Cameron's Tallow and drop them a DM if you have any questions, or go to the website cameronstallow.com to find out more. I'll put all the details in the comment section below. Cheers.
So all those eggs that were taken out in round 1, they can only be used in round 1, and then you have to go through the hormones and the egg removal and all of that again?
Dependent on what you've made. So if you've had, so for me, I'm 42, so I have chosen to use my eggs straight away because of my age, and I've chosen to put in, if there is an embryo made, I want it put in straight away because I don't have, time is not on my side. Mm-hmm. If I was in my 30s and I got 9 successful eggs, I might choose, a lot of women will choose to freeze those eggs at that point. And then later on, when they're ready, or maybe they've met a partner, then they'll complete the petri dish bit. Yeah. Or not. Also, if I've only ever had on each round 1 successful embryo go in. Say on a round I created 3 embryos. What they can do is freeze the 2 embryos, the 2 other ones, and put 1 in. And then on my second round, I could say, hey, I've got those embryos in the freezer. Can we try and unfreeze and put in the next one? I haven't done that way.
So you've had no eggs frozen so far, Amy?
No, I haven't. No. I've used any good eggs I've tried to fertilize straight away. and I've tried to make embryos straight away. And any that I've had, I've put in and tried to get pregnant, but it hasn't worked yet.
And you find out after 10 days whether the embryo's taken or not.
Yeah.
You've gone through that 6 or 7 times so far, Amy?
6 times.
6 times.
It's pretty full on.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Does it get any easier?
No, I'd like to say yes in a positive light. It's stressful. It's like, and the first few times I was doing that, I also owned the pub. I had other businesses going on, and the emotional and financial stress it's expensive.
How much is it a pop?
It's as a single woman, there's not any grants or anything like that, or you can't go down Medicare and just claim for it. It's 10 grand a pop. Sperm is expensive. You have to pay for the sperm. I feel really lucky that I've been able to do it. Many women, I'm in a really privileged position, and I'm working hard so that I can do it again.
Yeah.
But I feel lucky that I've been able to do it, because not everyone can.
And is there a reason, Amy, that you changed donor? Just to see if the sperm would take, or?
Yeah. I changed donor, changed doctor, changed clinic, because 6 times and it hasn't worked. 5 times it didn't work on the donor that I had and the doctor and the clinic that I had. And I just, for me, it was a lot of, a lot to give to one thing. And I just thought, okay, there's something, what can I change? What am I in control of? Again, it's like a bit of an experiment. Why don't I just change everything?
Well, it goes back to you being
again.
a doer, Amy,
Yeah.
doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So I've changed it all again. I haven't been successful on the last go, but I've kind of emotionally and financially prepared for one more go. And then after that, there's then other options. So you can get an egg donor. So I could get an egg donor and a sperm donor. And you can also now adopt an embryo. I had no idea any of these things existed.
It's incredible.
So if a couple did a successful round of IVF and they had an embryo in the freezer, and they've chosen that, they don't want anyone else to their family, they don't want any more brothers and sisters to that child, they can donate that embryo to somebody, but they choose where it goes. I didn't know any of this.
Well, you've probably went down a massive rabbit hole in this space.
Oh my God, yeah.
Wow.
But I think what an empowering thing to be able to do. And, and also I think coming back to that, talking to my parents and things about it, it's been quite a weird process. There's no one, where like the first generation that are starting to do this. And it's really empowering, because we don't really have, the first IVF baby was 1982. And, now, I don't know when the first woman who did it on her own was, but there's no role models, or, it's only just kind of been openly talked about. There's no one to ask for advice. So I think for me, what a journey to then learn all these things and then be able to talk about it and give other people, if that's all that, give other people advice as well.
Is there any fear around, is there any fear around doing it by yourself?
Oh, but all the fear times 60 million.
And how do you get around that? How do you deal with that on a daily basis?
I deal with it on a daily basis. And I try, on my first go, I was just consistently thinking about, oh my God, what if I was doing spreadsheets of, okay, when I become a mom, how am I going to afford childcare? How am I going to, and that was too much. I think for me, because I've been through it so many times, just thinking, okay, let's just go for the egg collection. Let's deal with that. Okay, that's a success. Now let's deal with the next step. I think thinking about the whole thing, the whole marathon of it, is too big. Like thinking about it in terms of just daily steps. Today, can I go to the doctors and start my injections. Sure, I can do that. I think I try and do it like that to not deal with the overwhelm of doing. I'm completely petrified of doing IVF again, of being a single mom. Yeah. Day by day.
Yeah. Like thanks for sharing, Amy. Like it's a world I know absolutely nothing about. So I just felt like I had to like
I love it.
dig in a little bit. What question have I missed? Like if there's someone out there who's thinking about doing IVF, like what else do they need to know that we've not covered or I've not asked you about?
I think we've covered I think we've covered a lot of it. I can't think of something. I suppose if you're thinking about it, when do you start? I think I get a lot of girls from Bondi Beach Babes. And I think a lot of girls are like, oh, I don't know what to do it. Should I freeze my eggs? Should I do? And I think just go for it. For me, I get a lot of the fear. I always think about what's going to be my regret if I don't do it. And for me, the regret is bigger than the fear. If I get to whatever my age is and I haven't given it my best shot at having a family, I am going to really regret that. So I've just got to get over it.
And that stings more.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I've not had the opportunity to ask one of these questions in a very long time, but it feels like a nice way to sort of end the podcast, Amy. So I'm going to ask it. If I can take you back to that version of Amy back in 2020, that was at that low, under that wave, couldn't get above the wave, what words of advice would you give her?
I think I would tell her brighter things are coming. I think I would tell her to hold on, keep paddling. Good things are coming. That party wave is coming in, and brighter things are coming. And I think, the joy of that horribleness of COVID is like just such good things have come on the back of it. So I think, like to that person back then, have hope when I didn't have any. And I just think, from the only way's up, right? Sounds very cheesy. But I think, good things can only come when you hit that low. Things can only get better.
Beautiful. That's a really good place to leave it, Amy. Thank you so much for coming in. You've been super open and honest with us. Really, really appreciate it.
Oh my God, thank you.
And good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Cheers.